In a world where...
Is this thing on?
Barely.
This episode of the Just John podcast is brought to you by two of the most amazing patrons on the planet, and the random fact that Nintendo was originally a trading card company. What up, homies? I'm your host, John Medina, and this, my fine ladies and gentlemen, is the Just John podcast, episode 27 for the week of February 27th. Today on the show, the Flying Nimbus, Deadpool killed it, Playboy's in my news feed, and much, much more.
I fart in your general direction. Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelt of elderberry.
We've talked about hoverboards quite a few times on this show, between the explosions and the bans of them not being able to be used on the streets of New York and different things like that, and the fact that they're called hoverboards but they don't actually hover. They've got a lot of bad publicity lately, but there is a guy named Yes Ranger, and he's a YouTuber, and basically what he did was he dressed up like Goku from Dragon Ball / Dragon Ball Z, and turned his hoverboard into the Flying Nimbus. So he just packed some kind of yellow insulation or something around the hoverboard and then just went down the streets, and it looked like the Flying Nimbus. And that's so cool. It's cool that people are finding different uses for these that can be, okay, you're a cosplayer, so how can you incorporate this into your costume? There's another guy that made Aladdin's flying carpet out of his hoverboard. I think that's pretty sweet. It would be cool to see somebody turn it into the hoverboard from Back to the Future. So just make it a pink hoverboard, make a pink board top for it, put it on there, and then dress like Marty McFly, like you're zooming around on your actual hoverboard, different things like that. So it's cool that we can see this device that's had such a bad rap for catching on fire, burning your house down, hurting people because they're not wearing protective gear and stuff like that. It's cool that we can see people that are actually using this in creative and different ways. And I look forward to seeing people do a bunch of other cool stuff.
When I see a car like this, first thing I do is I say, would you look at this?
The other day, I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw the weirdest thing. A Playboy ad popped up in my newsfeed, like a sponsored Playboy ad. And it said 5 games coming out in 2016 that may have been delayed, or something along the lines of that. I can't remember the exact term for it. This is the first time that I've seen Playboy's new rebranded focus targeted at an audience that may not necessarily have been exposed to Playboy before. Okay, not exposed because everybody knows what Playboy was, but didn't frequent their website and things like that. Like in the past, they didn't go to Playboy's website for anything. So out of pure curiosity, I did click on the article, and I noticed that basically what's happening is Playboy is really trying to transition. They've got like an entertainment category. They've got a gaming, style, humor, different things like that. So they're really trying to move into go to this site to actually read news about different subjects and things like that. And it's really interesting. And I just wonder if they're actually going to be able to make the transition, because we've already got all these news sites that are big multi-conglomerate sites. Like for business, you go to Forbes and different things like that. And then for your multi-purpose stuff, you've got BuzzFeed, which I don't necessarily qualify that as news per se, but it's still got a lot of entertaining stuff. And then you've got The Verge, which pretty much covers everything that anybody wants to know about, aside from some political things and different things like that. And then, of course, for that, you've got the big news sites, ABC, NBC, blah, blah, blah. But it's just weird to see Playboy in my Facebook news feed advertising an article on gaming. You can tell that they're trying to reach different audiences, And they're trying to get away from that stigma of being a nudie website, nudie magazine. They're trying to now establish themselves as a place that you go to find news. I'm not sure how well it's going to work out, and to be honest, I still don't know that it's a good business strategy for Playboy, just because they're going from a dying market to an overly flooded and very difficult to make profitable market. And so we're going to see how they're going to do. They're either going to sink or swim, and we may see the death of Playboy in our lifetime.
Hello, I'm Bill Nye. You may know me from such things as science.
Kanye West, aka the greatest artist in the world, is broke. Well, that is, he's broke if you believe his tweets. Last week, before hitting the Saturday Night Live stage, he tweeted that he is carrying $53 million in debt. Well, then again, renting out freaking Madison Square Garden and filling it with a bunch of models all in your new clothing line can't be cheap, so maybe he just has a $53 million bill that he owes for that. However, on Sunday afternoon, he decided to tweet and ask Mark Zuckerberg for $1 billion in investment. This is what his tweet said. He said, "Mark Zuckerberg, invest $1 billion into Kanye West ideas." After realizing he is the greatest living artist and greatest artist of all time. Okay, first off, Mark Zuckerberg is a businessman. And if you're $53 million in debt because of your Kanye West ideas, why would he invest more money into your Kanye West ideas? But I don't believe that Kanye West is actually in debt because his net worth is $145 million. And your net worth is calculated by taking your assets minus your liabilities. And a debt would be a liability. So right now he is, as of 2015, he is worth $145 million. That's between everything that he owns and his stocks and whatever else he has in his portfolio, minus the debts that he had at the end of 2015. So even if he's accumulated $53 million in debt since January 1 of 2016, he's still not technically in debt. He would just have to sell whatever. On top of that, his wife is worth $85 million. So combined, they're worth, $230 million. There's no way that he is actually in debt. If he wants these people to invest money into a project, he needs to go about it the way that other people go about it. But it's kind of weird to me that maybe he's not necessarily willing to invest his own money in his ideas. Now, there's a difference between not investing your money in your ideas because you don't have any money or you don't have nearly enough money, because that's where you go find venture capitalists, or you get a business plan together, you go to the bank and you get a business loan or different things like that. Because starting out, I want to build this restaurant or what have you, whatever you want to do, but I need $5 million and I have $1,000 in my bank account. Well, then you need to go find somebody that has that money, but you're going to put your $1,000 into that business. There's no doubt about it. But if you have $145 million in assets and you're not willing to put some of your money into your ideas, it's kind of scary. Now, I know that 145 million and $1 billion are very, very different numbers, but I just don't see the logic in Kanye West's tweets. My real question about this whole situation is, does Kanye run his own Twitter account? I don't think so. I think that somebody is just out there smoking too much weed and just tweeting what they think Kanye would say, because Kanye does say some off-ball crap, but I don't know. Maybe he's like Donald Trump. Maybe he does run his own Twitter account, but can you imagine like Kanye being drove around the city in his Bugatti or his Maserati or whatever vehicle he owns and tweeting, "Oh, Mark Zuckerberg, invest $1 billion in me." But you're sitting there having somebody that you're paying drive you around in your $300,000 to $1 million car. Seems logical, right?
At midnight Saturday, the telephones in this city will be changed to dial service, and all telephone numbers will be changed.
Deadpool is killing the game. Now, I went and saw this movie the Friday after it opened, and holy shit, was it a fantastic movie. At this point, Deadpool has broke the Valentine's/President's Day weekend box office record. It has broke the record for a release in February. It has broke the record for an R-rated release, and it is on track to be the highest grossing R-rated film ever. And for good reason. It was a good movie. It was funny. Sure, it had flaws, but there are very, very, very few movies that don't have any flaws at all. And on top of that, all film is subjective, so it had a few flaws to me, but what I saw as flaws, somebody else may not see. Beyond that, it was a good movie. Go see it. Don't take your kids to see it. Do some research. When I was in the movie theater, I was standing in line. My fiance and I were standing in line. You know, we had our tickets, popcorn, soda, blah, 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 everything, and we're waiting. And I look closer to the front of the line, and there's two kids that had to have been maybe between 7 and 10 standing in line. And I can't help but think to myself that their parents just didn't do the research. They were like, oh, a Marvel superhero movie. Let's take the kids to see that. They'll really enjoy it. And I knew that the film was going to be pretty raunchy, but I didn't know it was going to be that hard R. And while I was watching the movie, I couldn't help but think about the parents with their two little kids in this movie theater and what they were thinking, what was going through their mind. The surprising part was, though, that when we were leaving the theater, the kids were leaving the theater too. So the parents did not take the kids and walk out of the theater. They let the kids go ahead and watch the movie. The next question is, will Deadpool get a sequel? Well, freaking duh, because it made money. And as I've said on this show multiple times, Hollywood studios are in the game to make money. Now, the sequel hasn't officially been greenlit yet, but reportedly, they are intending to keep the same team together, Ryan Reynolds, director Tim Miller, and they also want the original Deadpool writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick to write the second film. And we will most likely see Cable as the villain. It's going to be great, it's going to be fun, and I hope they can do it again. The only fear that I have personally is that the studios are going to see how good Deadpool did with an R rating, and they're going to start making films that don't need to be rated R, rated R. Now, they've already talked about making Wolverine a rated R movie. The last Wolverine, the next one, the last one with Hugh Jackman in it. And I don't think that's a good idea. The reason why I don't think that is a good idea is because the Hugh Jackman Wolverine has never been an R-rated character. And to make it an R-rated character now is out of character of who the Hugh Jackman Wolverine character is itself. Now, I'm not saying that once the Hugh Jackman Wolverine is done with and they have to rebrand Wolverine and essentially reboot Wolverine with a new actor that they couldn't do an R rating, because they could, because Wolverine has the potential definitely to have an R rating. But I don't think it's a good idea to continue a character that has never had an R rating on screen into an R rating. Another thing they've released now, that the Batman vs. Superman director's cut is going to have an R rating, but the actual feature film's going to be PG-13. And I think that's just a little ridiculous. Don't jump on this R-rated bandwagon. If you're going to make a good film and it happens to be rated R, then you're going to go ahead and make the money. You're going to make a good film, people are going to like it, people are going to enjoy it, people are going to go see it multiple times. If you're making it an R-rated film because you want to, try to live off the ties of Deadpool being such a successful R-rated movie, you're only going to make it worse for those good R-rated films, because people are going to go into those automatically thinking that they're just jumping on the bandwagon. Another reason that Deadpool was R-rated and so successful is because within the new MCU, we haven't really had an R-rated superhero movie, and people were ready to see it. Yes, it was more, in line with the comics, breaking the fourth wall, things like that, really pop culture-y, and that had a lot to do with it, but it was also a lot of people that have loved the MCU movies that didn't necessarily read a lot of comics, that don't really even know who the characters are, but they wanted to go see an R-rated superhero movie because they wanted to see the blood and the raunchiness and things like that. They wanted to see that because they haven't seen it before. If you start flooding it in and everybody tries to start doing it, it's gonna end up making it to where the R-rated superhero movies don't do that good, and they can't rely on the kids begging their parents to go take them to see it to help boost their numbers. I just want to see them exercise some control on it.
I guess you could say things are getting pretty serious.
All right, we are about halfway through the show, and as usual, I'm going to play a song. The song I'm playing today is called Party Hard, and it is by the band Denim Snakes. Again, that song was called Party Hard, and it was by the Denim Snakes. And like always, I will have links to their various social media sites in the show notes below. So if you like the song, go check them out.
This is Frankie McDonald, my own TV station live in Sydney, Nova Scotia.
Silicon Valley versus Washington, D.C. Last week, the FBI issued a court order that said that Apple needed to essentially help them create a backdoor into the iPhone 5C that the San Bernardino shooter owned so that they could find out, look through his messages, see who he was talking to, what he was talking about, and different things like that. Well, Apple formally opposed the order in an open letter published on Apple.com by CEO Tim Cook. He basically said that the FBI is essentially asking the company to create a backdoor for the iPhone's built-in encryption, something it has refused to do for many years. He goes on to say that complying with the order would have implications far beyond the legal case at hand, undermining users' privacy and giving the US government the equivalent of a master key capable of opening hundreds of millions of locks. Apple says that the FBI asked them to make a new version of the iPhone operating system that would basically take out some of the security features. Since iOS 8, Apple has stopped storing encryption keys that potentially allow third parties to unlock users' data. Basically, what they've done is they've made it to where they can't get into the phones either. No one can get into the phones. And what the FBI wants them to do is to modify the operating system so that they can break into the phone. They're not asking them to break into the phone. They're asking them to rewrite the software so that you can put in a passcode as many times as you want without the phone locking you out. Because right now, you put it in like 5 times and then it says you have to wait 30 seconds. And every time you get it wrong, that time limit increases and then it just locks the phone down completely. So that what they want it to do is to take that feature out so that they can use a computer to brute force unlock the phone, which basically means they use the computer to input as many possible PIN codes in as fast as possible until they break through the phone. Cook also said that the FBI may use different words to describe this tool, but make no mistake, building a version of the iOS that bypasses security in this way would undeniably create a backdoor. Apple has always had this stance on the issue. In the past, they've said that the creation of any sort of backdoor would set a dangerous precedent and might fall into the wrong hands of hackers and lead to similar demands for access from nations that like Russia and China that we don't necessarily get along with. He also notes that the FBI's legal basis for the demand comes from a federal statute from 1789 known as the All Writs Act. Cook says that if the government uses this act to make iPhones easier to unlock, it could just as easily demand that Apple build surveillance software to intercept your messages, access your health records or financial data, track your location, or even access your phone's microphone or camera without your knowledge. I think that he's using some scare tactics to get people really riled up about it when he says those things. Now, there's no question that, yes, they could possibly try to get that information, but I don't think it's going to work that way. And especially not if it goes public, it's not going to work that way. And someone will make it public. They're making this public. And this isn't even nearly what they're talking about wanting to do. The end of the letter says that while the FBI's intentions are good, it would be wrong for the government to force us to build a backdoor into our products, and ultimately we fear that this demand would undermine the very freedoms and liberty our government is meant to protect. After the letter came out surfaced on the internet or on apple.com, I guess it didn't really surface, it was just posted. Google agreed. They chimed in on the escalating battle and basically said that Tim Cook's letter was important and that a judge's order forcing Apple to assist the FBI in gaining access to the data on the terrorist's iPhone could be a troubling precedent. He goes on to say that we build secure products to keep your information safe and we give law enforcement access to data based on valid legal orders. But that's wholly different than requiring companies to enable hacking of customers' devices and data. Shortly after that, Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp all joined the argument, and a lot of tech companies have joined the argument, and they're all siding with Apple, defending Apple, saying that we will continue to fight aggressively against requirements for companies to weaken the security of their systems. So we've looked at this argument from the tech company's side, so now let's look at the Justice Department's side, because to break down a situation like this, we need to have all aspects of the story, right? So the Justice Department is basically saying that rather than assist the effort to fully investigate a deadly terrorist attack by obeying the court's order, Apple is saying no. So they are going to fight back. Originally, they granted Apple 5 business days to respond to the order. They gave a 3-day extension, but Apple has no intent of actually honoring that extension. So what's the public think about all this? Well, last weekend, Pew did a survey of 1,000 respondents over the phone. They found that 51% of respondents believed Apple should comply with the FBI demands to weaken security measures on an iPhone, and only 38% of respondents agreed with Apple and the other tech companies. If you limited the sample to respondents who owned a smartphone, 50% agreed with the FBI, 41% agreed with Apple, and if you went to just iPhone users, 47% agreed with the FBI and 43% agreed with Apple. So what's that mean? Well, it means that the people are looking at it as this is a single situation, this is a terrorist, and they want to see if weakening the security on the iPhone, not technically creating a backdoor, will help in the investigation. But we have one more person that chimed in, and he made some really, really good points. Bill Gates. He said this is a specific case where the government is asking for access to information. They are not asking for some general thing. They are asking for a particular case. It is no different than should anybody ever have been able to tell the phone company to get information. Should anybody be able to get bank records? Let's say the bank had tied a red ribbon around the disk drive and said, don't make me cut this ribbon because you'll make me cut it many times. Now, Bill Gates makes a really, really good point because in his letter, Tim Cook said, what's to stop them from getting your financial records, your financial history? Well, they can already do that. They can do a court order to the bank and get all of your records. They can even freeze your bank account to where you can't even use your own money. He says they can get access to your health data. Well, they can already do that too. They can subpoena the doctor and get access to your health data. He says they can track where you are. Well, they can already do that through phones and other means. And he says that they can use your camera and the microphone without your knowledge. Now that they can't already do, so he makes a good point there. And I'm not saying that I side on either decision at this point because we still have a lot of information to figure out. I understand that creating a backdoor could cause a lot of issues, and so I do oppose creating a backdoor. But I also know that there are some times when you need to know that type of information in order to bring justice or in order to catch somebody. We've been able to access all of this information before, and they still can. They can still access all of that information in the old-fashioned way. But what they can't access are the messages that were sent back and forth through iMessage and things like that. And that's where the problem lies. There's never been a situation where they had that information to ask. Before the days of the internet, if they found a letter, they could use it. If they didn't find the letter and it was burned, they didn't even know it was there. There was no way to possibly get it. Now we're in a situation where it's at their fingertips, but they just can't quite access it, and that's what they're trying to do. I think that there's going to be a lot of debate and a lot of thought that goes into this, but there's going to have to be a compromise somewhere. There's going to have to be a way that they can access it by court order only if absolutely necessary last resort, but in a way that somebody else is going to struggle to access the information in any way, shape, or form. Maybe they need to do a 3-factor authentication. You have to have the court order, then you have to have two people that can only two different codes to get into this locked box. Then you have the master password for this thing, and then you have to have two more, sub passwords or something to where and nobody knows all of this information. No one person knows all of this information. Now I know that's a lot of redundancies and a lot of securities, but if it's such a big thing that people are so scared that they don't want to create it at all, it's something necessary that if we do create it to protect it.
Don't tase me, bro! Don't tase me!
The Mighty. So you remember the iPod Shuffle, right? The little, just itty-bitty little music player that you could basically clip on, and it was like super waterproof, essentially, and break-proof, basically. I mean, you could like slam that thing into the ground and it would survive. And you put your music on it and you use it when you go work out and do whatever, mow the lawn, or, whatever you do when you want to listen to music or podcasts for that matter. Well, people don't download a whole lot of music anymore from iTunes. They just buy it on their phones and then it's just on their phone, and they don't worry about plugging their iPods and iPhones and anything into the actual PC and syncing it with iTunes anymore. But we've had a problem with little portable music players because of that. Because they either need internet or they need huge memory, and then you still have to plug it into your computer, which people just don't like to do anymore. So Mighty Audio is trying to change this. So basically, it looks like an iPod Shuffle. It's got the same button layout, but it also looks like a Spotify product. Like it was so similar to Spotify that they had to change the color so that it didn't identically match the Spotify logo. But the idea is pretty cool. Running with your smartphone or even an iPod Touch or whatever is kind of dangerous. You're going to break it, it's going to get too wet or whatever. And smartwatches just aren't doing very good in terms of playback for offline streaming. But this device is a little bit different. So a controller app on your phone syncs playlists over the device and handles authentication with Spotify so that you're able to take and keep the songs offline for 30 days at a time. So you can create your own playlist. You can download whole playlists, like working out on a Wednesday playlist, and you can use that. It also works with Bluetooth headphones, which the iPod Shuffle never did. It didn't have Bluetooth. This has Bluetooth capability, and it also has 2 gigs of built-in storage. Now, I'm sure that in time we'll see bigger storage ones come up. And I know what you're asking. Oh, this product sounds really cool. Where can I get this product? Well, right now it's on Kickstarter. It's got a goal of $250,000, and the deliveries are targeted for November of 2016. A little over $70 will get you a reservation for your very own. That's about equivalent to the iPod Shuffle price anyway. If you're interested in the product, you want to find out more, again, it's called The Mighty, and it's by Mighty Audio, and I will have a link to their Kickstarter campaign in the show notes below. Full disclosure, I have no idea who runs the company, owns the company, or anything, and they did not ask me to put this on there. I just thought it was a really freaking cool little deal, and so I wanted to tell you guys about it.
And some things that should not have been forgotten were lost.
All right, it's time for an app review. So the app that I'm reviewing this week is called Dig Out. And it is essentially a new version of the old Dig Dug game. Basically, what you do is you start out with this guy and you scroll down to dig down and over, left, right to dig left or right, and then you can go back up and things like that. And you have your little pickaxe, and it only has a certain amount of strikes. So every time you strike a piece of dirt, or as you get further, a piece of wood, it uses a certain amount of strikes on your pickaxe. So the first portion of the ground, like the top levels, only use 1. You get to the middle, it's 2. That's the farthest I've got. So I'm not sure if there's 3, 4, or more than that, but I'm sure there probably are. And there's little gems you can collect. You collect gems and you get money, and then you can use the money to upgrade your pickaxe to where it has more strikes per pickaxe. Now, when you start to run out of strikes, you can find these little blue orbs. And these orbs refill your pickaxe stamina, basically. And so that's how you keep going through the game. There's little spikes you can run into. There's rocks that block your way, but you can kind of push the rocks depending. There's bats, snakes, and spiders, and they can hurt you. You can also fall on the spikes or run into the spikes, and that will kill you. Or a rock can fall on you, and that will kill you. And then you just start over. You retain all of your other stuff, your gold or your coins and different things like that. There's also treasure chests that you can find and missions that you do to get gold keys to unlock these treasure chests, which give you different perks like new characters and different things like that. It's a really fun game, and I enjoy it a lot. It's just kind of a real time waster game, when you're just sitting around and you need something to do for 5 minutes, you can play that real quick. Doesn't have to do anything special, and it doesn't take a long time to play. It's not one of those, I need to sit down for 30 minutes to play this game. So it's just a really good time, and check it out. If you find some value in the show and you want to show your support by becoming a producer of the Just John podcast, you can find out how at patreon.com/JFMedina2010. If you enjoyed the show, please show me some love by liking, thumbs up, subscribing, sharing, rating, reviewing, retweeting, or whatever it is that's used to symbolize the love of the show on the platform you're using to view it. You can follow me on Twitter at JohnnyM_Revo and at Facebook.com/JustJohnPodcast. You can also find the show in its entirety at JustJohnPodcast.com. And you can listen to the show on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, or some other shit. You can email me with questions, comments, concerns at justjohnpodcast@gmail.com. And remember, without you, I'm just some dude talking to himself on the internet. Until next time, peace out, fam.